to another inspiring episode of #TellMeYourStory. I'm your host, Danielle, and joining me today is the incredible co-host, Ree.
Hi, guys.
Today we have the privilege of introducing you to an extraordinary woman who has conquered the odds and is now a beacon of hope for others, the amazing Nadine Ashworth.
That's right, Dan. Nadine's journey of triumphs over gambling addiction is just truly inspiring, but it doesn't stop there. She's turned her own experiences into a powerful force for good by founding Thriving Together in Manchester. Through this organisation, she provides unwavering support to women facing the challenges of gambling addiction.
Absolutely, Ree. Nadine's work touches the lives of those struggling with some of life's toughest battles. We can't wait for her to share her powerful story with us today, a tale of overcoming resilience and the strength to help others thrive.
So grab your headphones and prepare to be moved and inspired by Nadine Ashworth's remarkable journey. Let's dive into this conversation and learn how together we can create a world of support and understanding.
Hi, Nadine. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. Thanks for inviting me.
It's a pleasure. Your journey of overcoming gambling addiction is truly inspiring. Can you take us back to the beginning of your struggle and share what led you into the world of gambling?
Okay, and it's quite interesting you asking me this because somebody asked me on Friday, and as people in recovery, we normally have a certain point that suddenly that was, the reason why we did something. But I've really started to think about the previous years before that and leading up to the turning to gambling. So I'd kind of gone through quite a few traumas, one after the other, and thought I was dealing with it. So things like child loss, bereavement, I was sexually assaulted, and just carried on going through life and keeping that smile on my face. But the actual getting into gambling was as simple as just putting the lottery on online. So it's all very innocent. What I always say is, nobody wakes up and says, today I'm going to be a gambling addict. It's just really mundane, everyday stuff of, I'll put my lottery online. You have to put £10 on. You don't generally spend £10, so you've got change. And I started on instant games. After a while, found that really boring, and you realise that you weren't really getting stuff, money back on what you were spending, and left it for a few months and didn't think anything more of it. And then it was a time before Christmas, and for some reason, I started playing online slots, online games. So I didn't have a TV at the time, so I can't blame it on the TV adverts. But I do think it was probably something that came through my email or on the internet, because I spent a lot of time on my laptop. And it just really grew from there. So on that first evening of playing, within about 20 minutes, I'd won £200. And that really does something. See, I can see you raising your eyebrows there, but it does something to your brain of, wow, this is great. And I actually gave £50 of it to one of my best friends who had a few children. So it wasn't like I was doing it to, get money, as lots of people think. And it kind of grew from there as something to do. Maybe I was bored. I lived on my own, though I was with someone. I was doing really well at work. I didn't want for anything. I was okay. And it just kind of grew like moss on a stone, really slowly. So over a period of 4.5 years, I would say after about 2 years, I was gambling in a way that I probably didn't consider was dangerous. But looking back on reflection, it was really starting to damage my finances, damage my mental health, my relationships. So, and even in 2 year, a 2-year period, I was taking out payday loans, which should be a bit of a red flag, but it was just a thing of, it's a way of accessing money to keep me gambling. And it really came to a crunch where I was being bullied at work. I was in a relationship that wasn't really going anywhere, but not a domestic abuse or violent situation, but just really feeling like I was losing my identity of not knowing who I was. And then my mum died. And that was kind of a turning point where I went hell for leather with it all. And it was my way of coping. So it became something that I increasingly did. I spent more and more money. I ended up with about 5 credit cards, 2 big loans. And it was just that thing of that enabled me to kind of escape and to just forget about what was going on, making really bad choices in my life and not realizing that all these were having an impact. And it did get to the point eventually where I was stood in my kitchen and just thinking, I don't know how to make this stop. And it was as if the room, everywhere that I looked, was just spinning reels. And I came up with the thought of, well, maybe I need to be removed. And that kind of was a turning point for me.
I bet. And it's
Yeah.
mad now hearing
Yeah.
you talk about that, because before we were planning on the show, and I was thinking, well, thinking about the
Yeah.
questions and stuff, and we were like, oh, we don't know really much about
No.
about gambling.
Mhm.
And now that you've gone through it, it's very much the same. We've both experienced addiction with drugs.
Yeah.
And it's like the same sort of triggers with
Yeah.
trauma, and you know, it's, you can see those connections there, and they're really strong and powerful. So we totally understand that road that you've just gone on.
Definitely.
Even though ours was
It's
with
different,
substances, we were still chasing that high and
Yeah.
going through a similar journey, I suppose, to what you did.
Yeah.
Different levels,
Different,
obviously.
yeah. But it's still
But-
like an addiction in it. So it's still
Yeah.
the same,
Yeah.
like chaotic life. It's just one thing after another then. So overcoming addiction is a tremendous accomplishment. Can you walk us through some of the key steps you took on your path to recovery?
Okay, so I think, as I've just mentioned on that last question, just getting to that point of going, I need to be removed from this situation. I don't know how to make it go away or get through it. And that realizing that I wanted to live was a real big turning point for me. And I accessed some generic counselling support that was great in its own way. And I still, you know, give big thanks to the counsellor that I had, a really great lady, but I carried on gambling. And it was feeling like, oh, I need some more specialised support of somebody that knows what I'm going through. So I did go and get some gambling specific support. But what I would say is by then I'd really grabbed hold of my recovery. I wanted it for me, rather than, you know, I hear, and I'm not taking anything away from anyone, people say this organisation saved my life or this person did this. I really grabbed hold of it and was, you know, reading self-help books, watching YouTube videos. I think Twitter at the time had a massive impact of people reaching out, and you could be anonymous and you could say what you wanted to do, you know, what you wanted. So that was a big impact on me. I went on a financial capability course so that I readjusted my relationship with money, because it's not, I know it's about gambling and people think it's about money, and it distorts your head really of not, you know, especially if you're doing online gambling, it's just you're not connecting, you're not handing over wads of cash.
No, it's instant there, isn't it?
Definitely that instant kind of thing, and you're just waiting, and I call it like a hamster wheel that just keeps pulling you forwards. So yeah, it's those kind of things. So I really grabbed hold of all of that. But what I will say is, in my experience, I did it on my own. I didn't tell anybody what was going on. Who are you smiling at me?
I know.
You know this story.
Definitely.
And it
just shows strength.
I was just about to say strength, resilience. Like, to do it on your own is a lot. Fair play. I'm proud. I love that.
Oh yeah, but and because I help women, you know,
Yeah.
every day, it's that thing of really trying to think about somebody that you could talk to. And I would never push anybody. I know lots of women that have never told anybody well into recovery. But what happened for me is I'd had counselling one day and it had made me really emotional, and I relapsed. I had a lapse, and I spent about £500 online overnight. And the next day, my best friends were coming round, and one turned up early, my really good friend, and it just all blurted out.
Oh.
So it's that, you know, when you're carrying something and
Yeah.
it's going to pop out of somewhere. And that was, I was talking to somebody about it recently, about it was like I was encased in this tomb, that I was just trapped in something, and it just all crumbled away. But I also, that night, it felt like my feet were on the ground and that I was back on the planet and I deserved to be on the planet. Whereas it had felt like I'd been up in the sky. And it sounds a bit bizarre, but it's that, you know, that disassociation of not being.
And I suppose that is the difference between, the one difference between the addictions of a drug addiction and gambling is everybody can notice when you have a drug addiction, you know, and gambling is such a hidden thing, you know, and I suppose it carries a lot of shame and guilt with it as well, doesn't it? So it's something that can go missed a lot by people who are closest to you every day, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, because they would never think that you
No.
were gambling. So it's, you can sit at the side of them playing on your phone,
Yeah.
and nobody's even thinking that that's what you're doing on there.
Oh.
It's mad how just accessible
Yeah.
it's become now, isn't it? Like before, you had to go to a betting
Betting shop,
office,
yeah.
or and
Yeah.
it was a bit more open then because you could bump into people and people knew what each other was
Yeah.
doing.
But
But now it's online.
Yeah.
It's
People are doing it at home on their own, and then it ends up in that cycle then of addiction to gamble.
definitely. Thriving Together is a remarkable organisation that provides crucial support for women facing addiction and a range of adversities. What inspired you to start this initiative, and how has it evolved since its inception?
Okay, so it's quite interesting that the reason that I've set Thriving Together up is because of a man. But last year, it's a bit of a sad story, but it's really been the kind of kickstart that I needed. So I've been working in gambling recovery for nearly 4 years now, and I was getting this feeling that women weren't really included in the conversations,
Yeah.
and that that it's gender neutral kind of support. The language, the support is set up for males, generally by males, and things like that. And last February, a really close friend of mine, his father committed suicide,
Oh,
and I was
sorry.
really taken aback by that.
Very
And
sorry to hear that.
Mummy.
thank you. And kind of, I was like, so, when you kind of think about what were the qualities of that person,
Yeah.
what would I like to do? And he was really community minded. He was just really tenacious and really got to grips with things, and he just cared. And it really set me thinking, what could I do? And I don't know what it had done to my brain, but it was there. And then I went to a conference on gambling to go and help out there. And on a very long journey home, I was just thinking, what do women want? What do we want? How can we help women? What can we do? And on that 3-hour journey home from Cardiff, it must be Wales inspiring. It was I just came up with a business plan and started writing emails on the way home, and over time gradually reduced my hours at the place I was working, and then carried on with this. So yeah.
Wow.
Wow,
I know, I have to say that then. That is amazing. Just thinking of that train journey home is like, and you've just gone on a business plan. I'm sorry, that is amazing. So your organisation deals with a diverse range of challenges, from mental health struggles to homelessness and more. How do you tailor your support to meet the unique needs of each individual?
Okay, so we're quite a young organisation, so we're not full on giving that support 24 hours a day. But what I'm really proud of is what we do is we ask women what they want, and we've done that from day one.
Okay.
So when we had the idea, we did focus groups and surveys with women, and with this year we've continued to do the focus groups to gauge what women needed at the time and what they need now and what that looks like. So our women are our organisation, and
Oh.
they're chipping away at coming up with ideas, and they shape our projects. So they're central to what we do, and it's just really inspiring that it's not me coming up with ideas and going, this is what we're doing. It's just opening that
Yeah.
out and having women connect with each other and say, oh, I've had that experience or something similar. We also mix gamblers in recovery and affected others together,
Oh.
so that it's, so we're learning from each other. That wasn't a conscious thing, but it's worked really, really well. And they feel like they're being asked what they want, and that they're being
Yep.
heard, and that we're acting on what they want to do. They're seeing these things come through.
It's nice seeing the shift now, because when I first was in addiction, and it's the change is happening across all of the sectors at the moment, and they're including the people that they're helping
Yeah.
to make the decisions and make the changes that the project needs and what it should be delivering, because they should be asking the people who's using them services, what do you need, what can we provide, and that's how they do it, isn't
Yeah,
it?
because it's always been like when I've always gone into organizations, it's like, well, I think you should do this and that and that. And it's like, well, no, what about me? I should actually be speaking. And yeah, I think that's very powerful. Very, very powerful.
Definitely. It's nice to be a part and have a decision in your own recovery and how it's going to go and what support is available. So I commend you on that, because that's a brilliant way to start an organisation. Many women you work with may have experienced trauma and hardships. How do you help them find resilience and hope amidst their struggles?
We give them time to just talk about where they're up to and what they need. We're also, so using it as an example, so we've done a focus group on trauma and asking the questions of what do you need from this? And we're currently in the middle of running some workshops on trauma in a way that women are participating in them. It's not being done at them. It's that they're learning about it and then what they can do about it. It's not waiting 4 years for an appointment. It's what can we do here and now to make you feel like you're being, I don't know, you're part of your recovery, that you've got responsibility. So that's gone down really well, and we've got an amazing woman who does these workshops with our women. So yeah, it is about that kind of side. I've lost the question, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
So it's how do you help them find hope and resilience amidst their struggles? So I think you've answered that question, and it is brilliant, because it sort of ties into the last question, doesn't it? And it's about empowering women to give them the knowledge of how to support themselves, but then them doing the work, because that will reinforce them staying in that recovery for a long time when they're the ones that are doing all the steps themselves. So it's sometimes you just have to show people how to do it and then let them run with it, isn't it?
And I think it's also that you also believe it, that they can do it.
Yes.
So rather than saying, oh, you're broken and you're fragile and oh, you poor women, it's kind of going, I can see something in you.
Yes,
definitely.
You can do
and
this.
It'll be coming straight back at you as well, because those women with your lived experience, and you're not just talking to them as somebody who hasn't experienced it. So you're running your company, but you're a beacon of light because you've overcome this. So just anyone walking through your door is going to say, well, she can do it, I can do it. You know, and it's that power of lived experience.
It is. That's what helped us through lived experience, isn't it? It's amazing.
It's so powerful, lived experience. It just turns people's heads in the right way.
Addressing addiction and related issues often involves breaking down stigma and societal misconceptions. How does Thriving Together work to challenge these barriers and promote awareness?
Okay, so just us setting up Thriving Together and picking up the conversations that are normally mixed in with male-dominated conversations. So what I said at the beginning was, it feels like we're in this big arena with men, and I've got nothing against men, but we've got our hands up and no one's really listening to us. So let's just pick ourselves up, go and put ourselves down somewhere else, and us have the conversations that we can feed back. So there's lots of different layers of how that looks like. So just enabling women to say what's on their mind, to create a collective for them so that they come together and have a stronger voice as well. So our approach is choice, voice, and change.
Oh, I love
that.
That's
what we kind of fit our work into. So it's really important about the voice of feeling like they can have a say and they can change things. So we want to take that right through to policy level at some point. So we've already worked with the Gambling Commission on raising awareness for their staff about women and gambling, which was, I don't know how we managed to do that. I think that was through one of our members who was working with them. And we did a podcast with them doing a question and answer session. But we've got real plans to do some research and to do our own reports and get women involved in that and do some peer research, which is a bit like the focus groups that we've been doing. But to really develop, we've got loads of information and knowledge there, and we want to utilise that. But that, we recognise that stigma, but we don't accept it. So in gambling recovery, we hear a lot of women don't come forward because of shame and stigma. And my response is, well, what are we going to do about it then?
Yeah.
How can we change it? Rather than just accepting that statement and go, oh, well, there's nothing we can do. It's like, well, what are we going to do about this then?
Definitely. And it's coming forward and doing things like this, like these podcasts, and getting out there and speaking as a woman yourself. is what's gonna, you know, give people the strength and the courage to come forward and want to speak and think, oh well, maybe I'm not the only one.
Yep.
You know, and it's just realizing that, you know, there's no shame in addiction. It's a mental health issue, you know, and it's something that people struggle with all over the world.
Yeah.
So there's no need to be ashamed, and people
No.
should just come out.
And this is why we want more people to talk now and be open. In your experiences, what are some common hurdles that women face when seeking support for addiction? And how can we as a society better address these challenges?
Let me get my list out.
Yeah, that's fine.
No, because there's so many hurdles. So what I would say from the women that we work with, from the individual level right through to friends, family, community, police, organisations, policy level, we're not taken seriously.
Yeah.
So there's a real, I don't know whether that's in all addictions or, you know, I certainly think it's probably on all levels of society that we're not really taken seriously. We're the responsible ones, we're the caregivers, we're the ones that should be doing, you know, not being frivolous with money and looking after everything. So that adds to that guilt. I know one lady that I spoke to a couple of years ago, and when she came out to her family, her father said, "What are you doing? You're a mother. You know, why?" And it's just that no one's really thinking that this applies to women as well. So there's things like, what else? So that even in gambling recovery, the narratives and the way that people talk about it is very male directed.
Yeah.
So women just think this isn't talking about me, or, you know, and a lot of women in gambling recovery don't recognize that they've got an issue. They don't recognize the word gambling.
Yeah.
They don't, you know, and they don't recognize that their behavior is creating harm. They don't link it with that a lot of the time. So yeah, but the information out there is gender neutral. It's not specifically written for women. I think it's starting to turn a little bit now. Well, it will do when I finish with it.
Yeah.
But there's things like access to childcare, having to travel across towns to get to somewhere, and just feeling safe, not wanting to give you information because you may be risking your children, and just feeling like you're not going to be met with understanding or anybody that you recognise, you know, the faces that you recognise. So a lot of the group support is men and women. And especially if you think of, and this is nothing against GA at all, Gamblers Anonymous, but so many women say, I go in and there's 45 men and I'm the only woman there.
Yeah.
And I end up making the tea. And that's not good enough.
No.
But there are developments with that where there are women preferred GA groups. But choice is really important for people, especially in recovery.
Definitely.
Because we've lost, you know, we've spent so long not feeling like we're in control. And having that choice really stretches us, pushes us forward, I think.
Definitely. And like if I had to go into a group where there was all men, I would never have ever.
No, if we had that chance of like sitting in a group, I would never have even opened up in front of all those men, or
No.
I don't think I would have felt comfortable. I think I would have got to the door. No, I was just about to say I would have got to the door and I would have walked away. But I love the fact that you've made it more choice and for women as well. Like, and I love that.
Definitely.
What has been one of the most impactful moments or success stories you've witnessed while working with women through thriving together?
Okay, so that we haven't been going that long, so it feels like, you know, what are those things? But I've got a really good example of our focus groups, and we ran it a few months ago, and it was about relationships. So we don't have set questions. We have a little prompt just in case it goes quiet, but it never does. And we were asking them about relationships, and right from the word go, people started talking about the impact of suicide.
Right.
And if there was 10 women there and 6 different stories about suicide, and we had a lady who had lost her husband because of suicide, because of gambling. We had a mum whose son she'd heard him on the phone to the doctor saying he was suicidal because of gambling just that week. So she was kind of hyperventilating, and I was asking if she was okay. There are people that thought about suicide. There are affected others who are supporting their partners who have attempted suicide. And we even had one affected other whose partner had attempted suicide, and she considered suicide because she couldn't cope with the situation. So from that, I asked, are we going to do something about this? Because it is something that's talked about, you know, there is a risk of suicide, but we don't really talk about it.
Yeah.
So we highlight it, but don't discuss it. There are no spaces for people impacted to go and talk about it. But what we're doing now is I've got a member who's been impacted by it, working with a suicide charity, and we're going to help them develop some resources. Because I approached them and said, does gambling come up with your people that you support? And they said yes. So we're going to work together and develop some resources, train their staff, and use it as an example of this is what needs to be happening.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
Definitely, yeah.
You're like the voice for everyone, I think, and I think that's brilliant.
Yeah, and
Giving
it's
the women
nice.
a voice as
Yeah.
well in it again, and it's I love to hear that, because it's always male focused in a lot of places, I think. So to hear this, I don't know, I had goosebumps actually listening to some of it, because I think it's absolutely amazing that you've included women a lot.
Yeah, definitely. And like I remember growing up, and like my nan used to bet. And she used to be
Yeah.
like on the horses, and
Granddad.
she'd be sneaking down and to do a bet, and like I'd be going down with her, you know,
Yeah.
not to tell the secret. And so like it has been happening for a long time, hasn't it? And it's
Too long.
it's sad that it's taken someone like yourself who's gone through this and
Yep.
and seen like there was no support really there for women to now get up and go and do this and, you know, fill that spot so you can help the women that's coming behind you, which is absolutely commendable. Looking ahead, what are the aspirations for Thriving Together in terms of making a lasting impact in the lives of women you support and in the broader community?
Okay, so I really want us to stay a kind of organic space rather than getting tied up with funders wanting particular things. I really need that breathing space to see what happens, what our women come up with. One of the other things that I really want to do is to create spaces for minority communities.
Mhm.
So I can't sit here and say, I know what it's like for an African woman to go through it. I just cannot say that.
Yeah.
And there are lots of communities that feel that they can't come forwards. But what I really want to do is say, well, come to us, we'll give you a Zoom license and help you develop your own space.
That's amazing.
So these are all like idealistic ideas, but why not just try them? So I'm really open to women that are impacted by gambling and they don't feel that the services are for them, to come in and tell us what those services need to look like, and we'll develop them with them.
Oh, do you know what? That's amazing, isn't it? Nadine, is there any advice you want to give our listeners today?
Okay, well, I think this is really important, and it's something that's really coming up for people now. But what I want to say is you don't have to be in crisis to consider your relationship with, whether that's gambling, alcohol, too much shopping. It doesn't have to be at a really bad point that you generally see in the papers. If you're thinking about it, then there may be a bit of an issue going on. And I know that lots and lots of women feel like they're the only person that this is happening to. And I really want to reassure them that it isn't, and that there is support there. And, you know, it feels like you have to be brave, but just try it, even if you're just questioning what's going on for you. At Thriving Together, we want to be like a bench where women can just come and sit with us and go, I don't know what's going on and I don't know who to ask. And we can sit with them and say, well, these are your options. What would you like to try? So yeah, just don't feel like you're on your own, because you're really not, unfortunately.
Definitely, that's amazing advice. And if there was people out there that wanted to get in touch with your organisation, how can they contact you or get involved?
Yeah, how does it work?
Yeah.
How does the process work for people?
Okay, so we don't want to think of women as service users. We are not a service. They are women that want to participate in what we do. So we have a free membership. So if they go onto our website, there's just a link on there.
Amazing.
We don't ask you loads of questions. We're not asking where you live. We're not asking all your personal details. We ask you what you're interested in.
Wow.
And when your availability is and things like that. And that helps us plan all the activities that we've got going. At the moment, all of our stuff is online, but we would really love to develop stuff locally. So we are actually working with one of our women who says there's nothing in her area. So we've got her to write an email that we're going to share with organisations and see if we can train some staff up, so there is something. So anything is possible, really.
Definitely exciting. So there's exciting things going on in the future, and we wish you absolutely the best of luck, because your organisation sounds absolutely fantastic. And on that good note, we would like to thank Nadine for sharing her story today, and we would like to thank our viewers and our subscribers for joining us, and we will see you in the next episode of #TellMeYourStory.
Thanks, guys.